Because as a Christian, okay, there's a message of love that is central to our faith. And the Pope gave us each a little thing to put on our desk which said, love never fails. Love never fails. Yeah. And so I think, wow, what a message. Wanting to come down here, I was really intrigued at the hotel to come upon a bridal party, getting ready for the ceremony, and I went over and congratulated the family. And they said one wonderful thing. They said, they thanked me and they said, Inshallah, if God wills, Inshallah. I've always loved that phrase because you know what? God wills certain things. One of which is that love never fails. That was the message of His holiness, and I take that back with me as really a symbolic of what Egypt has achieved over the last 3 months.
Being a devout Christian, how did you see the burning down of churches and holy places? And how come, and we know that among the Americans, a large part of the population is really religious in a way or another, each in his own way. And how come this message did not come across that there is a risk to the nation? Why?
Well, first of all, you must realize that when Americans see what we saw in Nairobi last week, okay, a Muslim group of terrorists put Muslims on one side and Christians on the other and shot them in cold blood. And we see that and we think, this cannot be Islam, it can't be right, it can't even be human.
Of course.
And so we're very slow to draw conclusions about any country other than ours. And I think what people saw was, look, the people voted for Morsi, so he's in power. Well, that's the end of it. No, it is not. Because what I've seen here is strong evidence over the last 48 hours of just how pronounced your revolution was. It's a revolution that began before Morsi, but it is proceeding after Morsi. And that's an extremely significant development in democracy's history. There are so many times in American history where we don't even show up to vote. Last election, 60% of the people did not, 60% of the people voted, 40% did not. I say that as a condemnation of myself and my country. We should be more vigilant in our own democracy. And here, you put the largest crowd ever seen in history. 30 million folks were in the streets. In fact, it began with 20 million on the 30th of June, swelling to 30 million 3 or 4 days later.
But
I look at that and I think, that's unprecedented.
I've seen on American media that they are making fun of 20 or 30 million people, even though some of the correspondents were taken by helicopter to take a look from atop the squares and the streets to see it themselves.
We have an arrogance about the United States that is one of our strongest defects right now. We need to correct that because we need to be very, very appreciative of what has been achieved here in Egypt and realize, you know what? In some sense, they've done us one better. We've always said that ourselves as a democracy of 200 years standing. Okay? Well, guess what? What you did here is a significant development in that history. And again, I think it is the kind of thing which occurred, no one expected it. That's what history always is. It was what you were not expecting, and yet it happened. The question is always, how do you react?
And what you're telling me right now, if you go and tell the same story or a similar story or something close to that story back at home, how will you be perceived?
I have a reputation back at home for always telling the truth. Okay, it may be politically incorrect, but I always tell the truth. I'll tell the truth this time too. To say, listen, as Americans, we must be humble and realize we do not have all the answers. Certainly not for Egypt and Egyptians, because what they've done deserves respect first and foremost. What they've done deserves applause. I mean, the thing which amazes me is that when I look at the history of democracy, this is significant. To see the Arab Spring, it looked for a while like it was going to devolve into tyranny. Every place you looked, there was more tyranny, more bureaucracy, more oppression. And suddenly in Egypt, it changed. And suddenly you had people in the streets saying, no, this is not Egypt, and that is not Islam. That's crazy. And sitting up, and again, to me, it's always physical. If you put yourself on the line, that proves to be you're sincere. And unfortunately in America, we have too few people who do that anymore. I mean, I look at this and I think, wow, I applaud this. This is inspiring to me. I see your young people. We met some revolutionaries today here at the hotel. I love them. They're young kids, political science graduates. I look, wow, you're going to change your society. Poli-sci is important, economics is even more important. And to have them sit there and tell me, here's what we think we can do. Wow.
Great life to come ahead and more achievements I'm sure you will be doing in the years to come. I'm sure of that. With such sincerity and openness, I mean, the world needs people like you.
Well, I think it also needs people like these young Egyptians that I've seen here on this trip, because in some sense, Islam always is, any religion is in need of constant, there's a constant way in which you calibrate who you are based on your circumstances, based on what the religion teaches. That's true of Christianity, it's true of Islam. And to have people say, let's think about our relationship to our fellow man, relationship to our faith, and oh, by the way, our relationship to our society and civil law. I mean, that's cutting edge stuff. That does not happen very often. Last time we did this thing, it happened in Turkey, under Kemal Atatürk. But now it's beginning to happen here. How exciting is that? To see that, to participate in that, I mean, any young Egyptian, particularly young, I mean, there's a reason to get up in the mornings, to think, I'm going to be part of this thing. I can change a brilliant civilization 5,000 years old or more can now be changed into something relevant for the 21st century. What an amazing opportunity is that?
Right. I mean, you were Dean of the National War College.
I was.
And certainly you've dealt that way with a lot of young and not so young people from the military and people who are interested in all the military action. Egyptians get hurt right now when people tell them it was a coup. How do you see it?
Look, I live in Texas, okay? Our border is with Mexico and points south. And we've seen coups down there. I know what those are. A small group of military officers gets together, plots, and seizes power and keeps it for themselves. That is what happened here. I mean, I looked at what happened with having 30 million people in the streets saying, we want change now. And you have no articles of impeachment in Egypt whereby you could have done that peacefully. What choice did the military have except to do what they did? They did so very respectfully, very much not intended to seize power for themselves, but to actually return to the people. No one else could do what they did. The alternative was civil war. So I'm very proud of the fact that we had the privilege of teaching two of your main actors in that whole drama, General El-Sisi and General El-Sobi. And to have them say to me, this is kind of what you taught us in your war colleges. Wow. And to me, I use this example with them. In American history, George Washington was our great hero. Not only did he win the revolution, at the end of it, he handed his sword back to Congress and said, I surrender, I resign my commission, power back to you. You put it together. They then drafted the Constitution of the United States, which has endured for 200 years. I see that same spirit in General El-Sisi. I told him, you remind me either of Sadat himself or of George Washington. I do not make the comparison lightly. I understand there are a lot of things to go yet ahead.
Let me tell you, I mean, also to pass a message that perhaps may help with the messages that you're taking along with you. Many people, prior to the 30th of June, I mean, when people were getting themselves prepared to rally to the streets, they were talking to me, they see me, they know that I'm from the media, and they ask me the question, do you think General El-Sisi will support us, or he may back down before he does? So people were not 100% sure that they will be supported by him. And that means that the people actually, honestly, moved not so sure. They maybe were sure by 90%, 80% they will be supported, but they were not 100% sure he will take that step. Having met General Sisi, met His Holiness, have met politicians, I think you met Mr. Amr Musa as well.
I did.
And the young people, the revolutionaries there. It's a mix of people, of generations, of different backgrounds in Egypt. The picture, to me, I see it as somehow colorful picture.
Yep.
How do you see it?
Very colorful. I mean, I sat there and was in awe of some of the people I met. His Holiness. I mean, having been a monk in a monastery for 27 years, I think, wow, how big is his heart? What is the heart of a servant that beats in his chest? Abu Musa, same way. A brilliant legal thinker, very much concerned with how do we engage all society and get this thing right. I mean, that precision of thought is so precious to me. As a political scientist myself, I know what he's facing. Finally, General Sisi, I mean, I've been around a lot of generals. He's very special because he's not only plain spoken and courageous, but when the time came, he put his courage and his stature on the line. I know people who know him personally from his time at the War College, they all say the same thing. He's always been like that. This is nothing new. He's that man of character that you see before you. He was that way with us too. So in one sense, I'm gratified but not really surprised. You're lucky to have him.
I'm looking forward to your coming visit to Egypt, and things would be better. And please tell the American people that Egyptians do love them, people to people. We've been hurt and feeling hurt for the American people back in 2001, and this is why we were hurt when the administration did not back us up, at least emotionally, as much as we expected it.
Well, you see, as I told General Sisi, I reminded him, look, in America, only 1% of the people serve in the military that wear the uniform I wore. 1%, meaning 99% don't. And then they run for Congress, they are in the administration, the State Department, and all those high positions. And to me, I realize the most important aspect of this is that in Egypt, as in other countries that have conscription, the army is not them over there, the army is us. And as an American, I think we have lost that. I regret that more than I can tell you. I've written books about this. I appear and speak passionately about this whole issue. Because the army cannot be them over there. It's got to be all about us. Here it was. And you can never tell when the day will come when the army is going to act. And in your case, it acted on behalf of you, the people. Right. And that's a rare, rare gift from history, which I hope you'll take full advantage of.
It's been a real pleasure meeting you. I enjoyed speaking to you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again soon.
My privilege indeed. To the Egyptian people, I say thank you and God bless you.
God bless you. يعني أعتقد لقاء من القلب. واضح جدا إن محدثنا بيكلمنا من قلبه، ويعني لازم نبقى مميزين ما بين اللي كانت عليه الإدارة الأمريكية أو اللي عليه الإعلام الأمريكي اللي بيتغير هو كمان وهو بيشوف الصورة بشكل أوضح. أعتقد إن أنا لازم أشكر المجموعة اللي قامت بإعداد هذه اللقاءات وهذه الزيارة. الوفد أكبر من كده بكتير، بنحاول إننا نلتقي مع أكبر عدد منه، ولكن واضح إن في رسالة وصورة من خلال هذا الوفد تنتقل للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية زي ما احنا عايزين، ويمكن أحسن كمان.